Welcome to our comprehensive guide on leveraging the power of gRPC in Rust. In today's interconnected world, seamless communication between services is paramount, and gRPC is here to revolutionize the way we achieve it. Built upon the robust foundation of protocol buffers, gRPC offers a standardized and efficient method for inter-service communication, ensuring optimal performance and scalability for your distributed systems. In this tutorial, we'll embark on a journey through the Rust ecosystem where we'll explore the intricacies of protocol buffers and Prost, Rust Premier Protobuf code generator. With these tools at our disposal, we'll dive into crafting gRPC services using Tonic, Rust's leading gRPC framework. From defining service contracts to deploying servers and crafting clients, we'll cover every aspect of building reliable and high-performance distributed application in Rust. So join us as we unlock the full potential of gRPC in Rust and discover how it can elevate your development projects to new heights.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So today I would like to show you how to work with gRPC in Rust, and this is probably going to be a very quick one. So like before, I'll create a readme over here, and just to give you an overview of what we'll be doing today. So more or less I would introduce you to working with protocol buffers, in Rust, and I will of course show you how to set up the server as well as the client. It's gonna be a pretty fast one, a pretty quick one. And so without further ado, let's jump right in. So what I've done right now is basically create an M2 project. As you can see over here, the only file we have right here right now is our readme. And what I want to do is to of course create a new project, and we can of course quickly do that by just doing cargo init and just set up a new project for us. And now of course over here would have our main.rs, and if we run cargo run, we should get our hello world back. Awesome. So everything looks to be working fine. So what I would want to do now is of course do set up the installations we have to make to start working with protocol buffers in Rust. So I would head over to the cargo toml file and basically add a couple of dependencies that we'll be needing, and of course we would be working with Tonic. I would also leave a link so you can also maybe in your free time read up about Tonic, but I'll try as much as I can to do a very quick introduction to Tonic. And we would need Prost. Prost would be required to generate our code from the protocol .proto file definitions, and of course we would have Tokyo. And yeah, I would just want to specify the version. So I would want version 1.37.0, and features I would for now just say full. And of course the next thing I would want to do is to set up my build dependencies, because I would like a scenario whereby I would be able to generate our type definitions from our proto files, and would want to do this before our code actually runs, so during the build phase. And because of that, I would set up here a build dependencies section, and here I would use Tonic build to do this. And I would of course it needs to be the same version as the Tonic we are running, so it will still be 0.11.0. and that's more or less it. And now of course I would want to create two binaries. One would function as our client, and the other would function as our server. So I can give this a name, and I can call this gRPC server. So this would be our server, and the path would be to a file that is inside our source file called server .rs, and I'll quickly actually just copy the same and put that over here, and this would be our gRPC client, and the file would be called client.rs. as straightforward as this. And the next thing I would want to do, of course, is to create a build script. So I would come over here and create a quite simple one. So this would be our build script. It would be, I would leave this in the root of the project, not within the source folder. So it's gonna be pretty straightforward. Again, I would add more flesh to this, so just so you can understand more how this whole thing is all setting up, of course, with Tonic build. So I would we would create a function here that would generate our files for us, and of course it's gonna return two things. So if it is successful, would just return more or less nothing, and otherwise would return an error. So this is gonna be dynamic right now, just in case we run into all kinds of error. It could be file not found, for example, and and here I would need to just use Tonic build to compile what we are providing. So here I can say compile protos, and here I provide the path to my proto files, and I would want to put them in a folder called proto, like this, and inside here I would define all my proto files. And for now I'm just gonna use this wildcard to match everything that has the file extension of the proto, and then more or less that's it. So this would be our build script. That's all we need for now. And just to be sure that everything is running, so Rationalize is trying to set things up for us, but I can already say cargo run, but of course this would fail because in here, if I go over to cargo terminal, we have defined that there should be a file called server.rs and client.rs, and this would not be found. So if we build right now, it's really gonna fail, nothing is gonna work. But I would, of course, quickly would want to go ahead and define everything that we need right away. So if we go to the source file, I'll create a folder like we said, and I'll call this proto, and this will be where all our proto definitions files will live. And I can create one here called auth.proto. It's going to be a pretty easy one, quite straightforward. And so the first thing, of course, I would need to define here would be the syntax, and this would be proto 3, and I would define the package. So the package would be auth for now. And now I define my service, so I can call this auth service, something like this. And now this is more or less looking like the interface. So now I'll define some function signatures. I will define what the input parameter would be and what the return argument would be, of course. And for now I would also leave it as like this, because we'll define all these types later. So I would make it quite simple, and for now actually I want to take care of just 4 things. So we'd have sign in, would have sign out. Of course I need to close this up with colons just so it makes sense. So here we have I can have sign up, and maybe lastly I say update. So this is where you update the user attributes, more or less. So now I would need to define a message that would handle our user, and our user is going to be pretty straightforward. So we need a string called first name. This would be the first thing in our struct, and we need another string called last name also, and we need another last one that said email. That's it, that's all we need. And now I can actually come up here and say for updates, I would the input argument would be of type user, and the return type would be of right type user. For now, just keep things simple. And I can also do same for sign up. And so for sign in and sign out, I would just define some simple message types. So I would define one. I can call this what can I call this? Sign in request, something like this. And so when you want to sign in, we simply need two things from you. So we need a username and maybe a password, as simple as this. And when you successfully sign in, so here I would define a sign out request, something like this. And so when you sign out, what should we return? I don't know. I would, let's say, maybe return a user. I don't know. Of course, this might not be ideal, but just this is not the goal of the tutorial for now. And maybe the token, and then we might decide to invalidate it or something. So let's also define a sign in response. So when you sign in, what we could return to you more or less would be maybe the user that's signed in, and maybe, I don't know, some token, and maybe also some refresh token, something like this. So that's when you sign in. I can already put this in here. So when you sign in, you provide us with this, and when everything goes well, this would be what you get back. And when you sign out, so the request would be like this, and maybe sign out response, and I can leave this as empty for now. And then so I can put in here sign in request and sign out. So the sign out request and sign out response. Something like this, quite straightforward. And I needed to close this up. So of course, sorry, this should be returns, not return. So returns. Awesome. And also I'm using an extension to help me write a better proto file. So I think it was called protobuf. Which one was it? I'll just say proto first, just to I think it's this one, VS Code Proto 3. So this is an extension you could install if you really wanted to get some highlights when you are writing this, and also to, as you could see, help you catch errors when you make them. So let's continue. So now we've defined our proto buffer, and this would help us manage our authentication. So this could be our authentication service, and for now there are 4 actions or more or less commands we can actually execute under the service, and they are all defined over here. And the next thing I would want to do right now is so I can already create these new files. So I can have here client.rs and another one that says server, like we said, .rs. And for now, what I can do is to maybe copy what I have here and delete this guy because I don't need it anymore, and I can just drop this in here. I need to close these ones out, and just so we don't nothing is missing. And now I can say cargo build, and this should of course install all the dependencies that we've listed over here, and then hopefully also compile our proto file and then generate the required protocol buffer type definitions and everything, attributes as well, and then we can actually dive in and start writing our code. So now we can continue. As you can see, our compilation is complete, and maybe what I would want to show you right away is to give you more or less a sneak peek as to what was generated. So if we move over to targets and go to debug, and we could go over to build, and down here we have Prost gRPC. Of course, this is the name of our project. And then if you go into out, and here we have auth-rs, and this is the code that was generated for us by Prost. And if you look over here, these are more or less the definitions, what we define, the messages as we defined in our proto file. And here we have the generated code that we can actually work with. And so without wasting further time, let's just jump right in and set up our client as well as our server. Maybe the first thing I might want to do is to set up the client. So we can head over to client, and I can actually maybe I don't have to get rid of this, and we can just build on top of this. And so of course I need Tokyo, so this would have a Tokyo runtime more or less, so we get async out of the box. But of course before that I would want to import a couple of things. So here I can have use, I think we called it auth service, and yes, yeah, auth service. And now I want, no, I think it should be the client, and now I want the auth service client, this one. And what else do I need? So I can already start setting up the client, and then let's see what we need. So in here I don't need this print statement anymore, so I can actually get rid of this. And yep, so now I can create a mutable client, and this would be from our auth service client. So it's not new, there is no method called new, actually is connect. And this is now when I would need to define the URL more or less where our server would be running. So for now I can actually define it using IPv6, and I can define it like this. So this would be more or less everything. And I would set up the server to run at port 5, let's say 50051 or 0, whatever, something like this. And actually it would make more sense to actually set up the server first, so we can more or less communicate with it this way. What I would want to do is to come to the root and create a new folder, and I can call this service like this. And because I would want to more or less group everything just to make it a lot easier to handle. And in here I can now define auth-rs, so this is where we'll define all our more or less implement the definitions we had when we created our messages, and of course set up our service in the protocol. And you could actually think of them as defining the interface or implementing the interface, something like that. And I like to always go the mod route, so I do it this way. So mod auth, and maybe in server I can already say mod service like this. And so now let's set this up. And now so I would want to make our imports one more time. So we have auth service, and from auth service we need our auth service server, and I would import two things here. So the auth service that we defined, yes, should be the, no, not, I don't want this client, and the auth service server like this. And maybe of course to be able to use this, let me define the main function, and then we can set everything up first, then afterwards. But of course to be able to use this I would need to do something more or less to bring this into focus. And here I would just do mod auth service this way, and then I would use this tonic macro. So it's Tonic include proto, this one, and now I here the services auth like this, and this should be able to bring this into this to focus more or less. So now what we need to do actually is to define all the methods that we define, well, that we actually, so if you look over here in this message, we more or less define this command, sign in, sign out, sign up, and update. And now what we have to do actually is to add flesh to this. So what we need to do here is to create a struct that would implement the threads that we are actually defined. So this would be more or less handled as a thread. So I can create a new struct here, and I can call this maybe some like authentication service. I think that's a really long name. And now what I would need to do is to implement auth service for this newly defined thread, authentication service like this. And of course now we have to implement the method, so that's also why it's complaining. So we have here sign in, sign out, sign up, and update, so we have to implement them. And we can already start with sign in. So I would make this as easy as possible, but of course you can more or less expand on this depending on what you are building. So this would more or less help you to actually get started. But yeah, so this would of course take reference to self, and we'll define a request, and this request should be something. We said for sign-in, we had defined a sign-in request message, which is this one. So it should be something that should provide us with a username and password. And to do that, of course, we need to wrap our request with the request from Tonic. So I need to import the request from Tonic. So I have here request and response, and maybe also status. And so this request now I can actually wrap this up with the one we just imported like this. And also to make it a lot easier, I also need to import the methods that we have defined. So we have here auth service, and in the root, of course, here we should have all these sign-in requests, sign-in response, which are the ones, sign out request, sign out response, like this. I hope they are properly defined. And now I can define my sign-in request. So this should be our function signature, and of course the return type would be a result. And I also need to wrap this in a response like this, and then the response of course would now contain more or less two things, and one of them would be our sign-in response and or a status. That's a pretty long function definitions, function signature if you ask me, but that's okay for now. And what is the error? So if sign-in is not a member of thread auth service, are you serious? Yes, of course it is. So if sync in, I think we made a mistake, so it should be sign-in like this. And now what is the error? So we have here this, and then our results is this one, or just to be, is everything as it should be. So we have here response, and the response should contain our sign-in response and status like this. And lifetime parameter bound do not match the trace declaration. So what is the error here? Enum text to generic, but one generic was supplied. Oh, actually no, this is wrong. It should have been this way. Yeah, exactly, it should have been this way. and now we can of course implement what needs to happen in here. So we will really keep it pretty straightforward and simple. And now, so I define a user, and this user would get it from our request. So I can say request dot into inner like this. I'm keeping it as simple as possible. And then I can also make this, I think if I double click on this, it should give it to me. No, sign in request. And now what should we do now? I simply set up a reply that I'll send back to the user. I'm keeping it as simple as possible. So it will be a sign in response. This is what the user would be expecting. And this of course should have more or less three things: a user, a token, and a fresh token. So our user would be here. I can create a new user. So we can create it like this. Awesome. So here let's keep it simple. String that's from, and I can say Tony. This would be our first name. So last name, I'm also just gonna make everything the same. Last name this, and let me break the line more or less to accommodate what we're doing. And this will be our email. So the user ends here, and this is the user actually, so it should be here. And now we want our token, and I'm also gonna keep it simple like this. And then the last one of course is refresh token. I'm also gonna put the same thing like this. And what is the error expected? Yeah, of course. And now I simply just return this. So now I'm not doing any computation. So this is sum, or this is wrong, should have ended here, and this one should have gone. And now I close this off, and now I simply return this back to the user, and this will be a response. I will wrap this with more or less what we are providing to the user like this. And I need to close this off like this. And that's more or less it. What is the issue here? So lifetime parameter did not match, lifetime of import did not match. Yeah, of course, yeah, because we have to annotate this more or less with tonic async trait. So tonic async trait like this. And that now should be fine. Now of course what we have to do is to implement the other methods for our service. So we have sign in, and maybe this user is actually not being used. So what I can actually also do is just give this back to the user. Oh no, this is not provided. So okay, we are only getting a username and a password. But I would like to just log this because again it's gonna complain. So to do that I would have to add some traits here. Actually need the debug trait to be able to log this, but I will also add the default trait more or less. And so that here I can also maybe just print, I'll just say something like got a response from user, from the following user, something like this. And I would want to know, I think this is fine, and I would have this like this, and that should be okay. Great. And now we are done with our sign in. So now we can of course go ahead and define sign out. It's more or less again gonna have the same signature, so I can just copy this, and just so I don't fight with curly braces one more time. But the only difference here is that for sign out these values would change. So here would be our sign out request, and here would be our sign out response. That's more or less it. And what can I do here? What I can do here is maybe also like what I did over here. I just copy this, something like this, and I paste it over here, because for now I'm really not doing much. And again, I would also define maybe a reply as well that I would return back to the user, because again we need to satisfy our return type over here. So the reply would be a sign out response, something like this. And what should be inside of it? Actually, I think it's empty. Yes, I think it's empty, so I'm just going to define it like this. And now I return to the user a response like this. And this should be more or less what we get when we sign out. What is the issue? I have to close this off, of course, and this is fine. And now, so we have these two methods defined. The next thing I would, of course, want to do again is something pretty similar to this. So, and that would be our sign up method. So this would be sign up, and again this part needs to change. So here we said it's a user, and this would also be a user. Where's the error? Oh, of course, I'm always fighting with curly braces. And I don't think we have user imported. So over here, of course, I need to close this up. And over here, I think we should be able to have access to user. That is fine. And now we also need to, I'll just, what is the error here? Sign out requests into inner and expected sign-in request find out found sign out request. Of course, so sign out requests, and that's my bad. And maybe I also copy this and for update, so we can now focus on adding the last flash to our code. And what is the problem? Expected this. So I think let's complete this part first. So for sign up, I'm also not really gonna do much, and so I would just copy this here. I don't know why I was calling this user, but that's not much of my concern for now. So we get our user this way, and we log this again. And what I would want to do again is to just set up a reply and then return this to the user, because I just want us to focus on how this is set up and not more or less this one. So let's just focus on this. So last name would be user last name, and then email will be something like this, and this would be our user. And now I of course close this up, and then I return to the user and something like this. That's it. We have our sign up and then updates. Again, I will also do something similar, but you get the point here. You can of course add your logic to do whatever it is you would want to do. And I'm gonna copy this again, just to, it's more or less redundant for now. And I think everything is looking as it should be. So this is looking fine. And now what I would want to do is I would want a way to instantiate this service more or less. So I can define the function here, and it needs to be public, so I can have it access to this outside of this package. Yes, I can call this auth. No, I would not want to. I can call this authentication. Authentication. That's a pretty long name. but I already have one named authentication service. So okay, and what would I want to do? I would actually need to return an authentication server of type authentication service, and so more or less something like this, authentication server, and here I would return my authentication service, something like this. And to do this, I would define auth. This way I would just instantiate this, and this would be my authentication service, and I can use the default because again I added the thread, if you remember up here. So we have a default, so if we took this thread out, would not be able to, of course, use the default. And now I just return the auth server, new, and I return the auth, this auth that I defined up here. And that way, this is one way I can just use this to instantiate the server. Pretty straightforward, to keep things as easy as possible. And now we move over to server. We already have this module service module imported, and what I would want to do now is to, of course, make our main method an async runtime, of course, using Tokyo. So here would be Tokyo .main, this way. And now I need to define, of course, because of that, this function needs to be async, and the signature of this function would, of course, be a result, but oh, that's my bad. It should be an enum. So it's either we return nothing, or again we return a dynamic error. So this would be from std error and error, something like this. And now we have to, of course, add flash to this. So now I have to define the address where I want my server to run, and here I would use IPv6. Sorry. And now I can actually define, so this would be, since we are on localhost, this would actually match everything. And the port would be, I would use 551 like this, and then I parse this. I don't know why this keeps popping up. And what else? And now I can, so now I actually need to import the server from Tonic to actually serve our gRPC server. And to do that, I just import server from Tonic, transport, and server like this. And now I can I will get back to this later, but first I also need to import one more thing from our service crate, and we go to auth. Actually don't need to do this, and we go to auth, and we go to auth service, and nope, actually let me do that. So I have auth, and I have auth service like this. No, actually don't need to, I can get rid of this way, it's not required. I think what I wanted to import here would be our authentication service, the function exactly, and can only be used in an async block that returns a result. Okay, so just to be sure, so this is either returns a result or returns our error. This is what it should actually look like. So let's continue. I would set up the server this way and use the builder, and this is actually where I add service like this, and now I can call my authentication service, this guy like this, and I say serve address, thank you, and now that I wait this way. And now what I need to do is more or less, if everything goes well, just to return something like this, and this should be of course fine now. So if we run our server, we should be able to serve something. And maybe what I can do is maybe get rid of all of this and just leave this as main, and maybe I just print line and I still say hello world, something like this. Just so that this compiles, and now I can say go build. Sorry, I'm always this is not go. I can say cargo build, and it should be able to compile our code. And now would of course need to run two terminals to be able to talk to the two different binaries that will be generated for us. And if I come over to cargo terminal, we actually named this gRPC server. So cargo run, not gone, bin, and I say gRPC server like this. No bin named gRPC. Yes, of course it should be server, not serve. So let's see, and now this should be running. And but of course, to test it, we would need to actually connect with our client to actually then make a request to this and see actually what's going on. And that's why I would really want to set this all up, and then we can test everything out. And then so we can again head over to client. This should be pretty straightforward. And again, I would want to but I would need to of course bring the module into focus. So I can some like pub mod, and I can call this auth service like this. And because I need to include to bring of course the proto the definitions that we had for this auth service, and I would use the macro include proto and then provide this auth. That's what the package was called. And so of course now I can import auth service, and I need auth service client like this. And now we have to just set up our client, and again, like we did for the server, this would of course still need to be an async runtime. So we again import this from our Tokyo.main, and then we make this function again. This should be an async function. So again, so results on return either nothing when everything goes well, or dynamically return error, which would be you can get from our std error like this. And why is this complaining? Oh, sorry, Tokyo, not Tonic. Oh, my bad. So now I can define my clients this way. My client would need to talk to the auth service client. So now I will connect, and now I need to provide this again. So HTTP, and what we provided was something like this. It's IPv6 format, and then the port was 551, like this. And then we of course await this like this. And is everything as it should be? So a service client that connects, and this should be correct. And now we can make a request to this client, and that we just created. So I can say tonic request, and we need a new. And of course, this more or less you could think of them as commands. But let's maybe try the sign-in request, for example. Sign-in request like this. So let's make a request to this command, and what we need to provide username, and I can say maybe Tony into just being, and then the next thing of course would be password, and I can also call password like this, and actually need to get rid of this. Don't need this anymore. So Tonic will request that new sign-in request, provide a username and a password, and I define a response. The response will now use our client, the one we defined up above, and we would need to do a sign-in like this, and we now provide our request, and we await. And I'm actually doing this way, but you would of course need to handle the error yourself without using question marks. And I can do a print line, and I say something like response, something like this, and yeah, I also need to be able to log this, and now I can just return OK. And what errors do we have? Auth service clients does not have. No method named sign-in, find the enum results. Are you serious? So of course, let's auth service, and we need sign-in request. So we have this. I think the problem was because of course over here we are also from the return type, you could already tell. So again, I'm not more or less focused on handling errors, so I'm just gonna do it this way, and everything should be fine. And now we have our response, and so again we created our client, we are making a request to our, of course I need to close this up. We're making a request our auth service clients, and then we are trying a sign-in. So of course this would modify our client, so I need to make this mutable, and that is fine. And now, so what I need to do is I need to build the whole project again, both the server and the client, and then we can test out the application to see if everything is working as expected. And now compilation is done, and I can actually close this up a little bit and split this into two, and I can now run the two binaries, cargo run bin, and I need to open this up too. So this gRPC server, and here I say cargo run bin, and this is our gRPC client, and this compiles and then makes a request, as you can see. And so here we have so if I come over here, you see we are just logging the response, and again the response, we're just throwing back what we're getting, like not really doing much. So the response here, you could see of course what we're doing, and over here on this terminal you could actually see us make the request come. You actually see the request coming to our server. And now, so this is actually one easy way you could of course use the client and connect to the server. And of course, if you're, for example, building a full stack application, let's say with something like I don't know, let's say Leptos, you could where you have the possibility to build your full stack application, the front end and the back end as well, and you could more or less utilize this a lot. And it doesn't actually have to be with a full stack application. If you more or less would want to have a scenario whereby both your front end and or let's say you're working with microservices and you have your server sitting someplace written in Rust, and you have another microservice, and let's say some cloud function that interacts with your server, of course again written in Rust. This is one easy way you can connect to your server and then make requests. And yep, that would be it for now. I hope you actually learned a lot in this tutorial. Again, I'm gonna create a repo. I would put this on GitHub and then share this to anyone who would be willing to more or less reference this in the future when they would want to work with our gRPC protocol buffers as it pertains to Rust. And again, thank you so much for being part of this journey. And please, like I always say, if you have questions, please feel free to leave them, and I would try as much as I can to get back to you with reasonable answers. And until next time, have a lovely evening. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe and engage with me. This would of course encourage me more or less to do research, to come back and bring you interesting contents as you would of course find useful. Anyways, have a lovely evening, and until next time, bye bye.